Alright, time for another DraftPhysics.com video presentation. So we'll do a response video to this planar talk person. What's his name? Says it in his about page, Nick. Alright, and New Zealander. Hoi hoi. So that's the evolution of language. Goes from greetings to hoi hoi. But anyway, just a fact, even the memes evolve, language, all of it. Anyway, so that's the simple theory. Evolution explains everything, okay? Just error code. You do enough permutations, you make permanent errors in the code, and boom, you can explain platypuses and people. So that's sort of what physics is supposed to be doing to the subject of the more elemental, what's in the universe, what's it made out of. And the argument is sort of like the Ken Wheeler puts it, bumping particles versus every other crazy, wacky, silly, magical theory, right? Because bumping particles is the only theory that doesn't require some sort of ESP or some sort of magical mechanism. So it's, you sort of have to choose. You have to be a New Zealander hoi hoiing, or a greetings person, or a hello, or whatever. But you got to choose one, in my opinion. You can't really play all the fields, or in all the fields, because the truth isn't going to be a mixture, frankly. Well, I mean, it could be a mixture if it's magic and reality. And real, but it can't be real and magic. So the idea is that yes, you could say it's a push universe, and what you're really saying is it's something has to impose on something else for something to happen. So a force, which would be made out of little tiny particles, hits bigger particles and moves the bigger particles. And then your question would be, well, when it moves it, how does it move it? Does it bang into it and then bounce off of it? Does it bang into it like Ken Wheeler thinks and then stop moving and just fall? Just stay there? Or is it more understandable that the energy, we've already kind of documented the fact that the energy never stops, and that wherever it goes, it's still energy. And so we can stick to something and push it. Now you have an explanation for lots of things like gravity and all that stuff, and you don't need this wooey stuff of, well, there's some sort of space and some sort of bentness, whatever that is. Whatever bentness is, there's some sort of bentness to the stuff that's supposed to be nothing. So the nothing is something, and it's bent. Clearly not a real simple explanation. Clearly not elemental. But all part of this fake physics that these people so arrogantly tell us what the truth is. So anyway, he spent the first 2 minutes and 52 seconds just rambling, frankly. Doesn't say a damn thing that makes any sense. So I'll start here, and we'll see if it gets more coherent in terms of making an argument. I mean, he made the basic argument that, yes, when I pick something up or when I open a door, I don't really pull on the door, I push on the back of the doorknob. That all the pushes can be understood as all the pulls can be understood as pushes. Even pulling on a rope, you're really pushing on the fibers of the rope in the opposite direction of your pull. So you're obviously pushing on the rope. Well, anyway, so let's take it from this point. That's where I stopped listening. Said, well, okay, maybe he'll get to something, save it for later, and I never got around to it. So anyway, let's play it, and we'll discuss it further. Hopefully my settings are tolerable. Let's see what the volume is. Sorry. Probably should increase this volume and probably should decrease this volume. So a little bit of interlude music. Doing a little technical cleaning up. For your benefit, of course. I'm always doing things for your benefit.
The only reason why we perceive gravity to act as a force is because We are three-dimensional beings.
No, yes, like, so what? Everything's a three-dimensional being, so to speak. Everything's three-dimensional in the universe. If it's a material universe you're describing full of material things and not wooey little sparkly gremlins. So if you don't believe in the gremlin or the leprechaun universe, then you believe that everything that's in this universe is three-dimensional because there's only up, down, this way, this way. That's the only way you can make 90-degree angles, and there's no fourth dimension that'll make 90-degree angles, so there's no fourth dimension, there's no fifth dimension. Everything's just in this three-dimensional universe. Gee, we have to argue about that? I mean, really, it just demonstrates how wacky everything's gotten, that we can't even in some Australian way, say these are accepted premises. Yes, there's three physical dimensions. Let's talk about the physical universe in those three dimensions and not play with a bunch of wooey bullshit. You can't even do that.
We're not built to see that if a planet is orbiting a star, it's actually moving in a straight line through space-time.
Says you. So again, so he says it's moving in a straight line through space-time, which doesn't make any sense because it can't be a straight line because it's a bent geodesic, so it's really not straight in any way. Blah, 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 blah. And clearly it can also be explained by mock gravity, which is the particle theory. And the only reason why you say the particle theory can't be true, it's impossible, is because of this drag problem. But drag can be understood because guess what? Electrons and protons demonstrate that they are actually subject to drag. That's why we can't make a gun that shoots the damn things, in any kind of way that's effective. We can't shoot them anywhere, make anything happen. It's because they are dragged to a halt. And it's only atomic nucleuses that somehow overcome the drag problem. And they do that because they have little springs built into them. So when they get pushed, they push back in the same direction they're going.
We're just not built to see that. So from our 3D understanding...
Not built to see that. I mean, again, we're not seeing it, we're modeling it, and the fact is we're built perfectly fine to see it if it was a force we could see. So if we could actually see photons, that is, we could watch them moving, that I could watch radio waves moving, and I could watch all this stuff moving without it having to get deflected by a particle and shot into my eye, and I could actually see particles doing things. Then I could see gravity, for example. And I'd argue if we could actually see it, it would be doing something entirely different than what you think it's doing, which is some sort of bent, solid ether space. And it is ether. I don't know why you don't just call it ether. I don't know why Einstein didn't just say, of course it's ether. What else can you bend? You have to bend to something. You can't bend to nothing. So of course, I've just replaced ether with bent space-time. Blah, blah, blah.
It looks like a force, so we can treat it as a force if we want to.
Right, and a force would be, it looks like a force. So everything going the speed of light, you'd say, well, that's a force. Because none of the matter can do that, because then you need an infinite amount of energy to push the matter. So we know none of the matter is going the speed of light, so we know it's all the stuff going the speed of light is actually the speed of force. And so we know all the forces are moving the speed of light, therefore light's a force. And we can almost see it, right? We can almost understand it. We can almost say, yes, it's got to be a stream of something. It's a something, light hits something, it pushes it, it has momentum. Forces have momentum. We get pushed with momentum into the ground. We are embowed with the momentum. It pushes us and moves us towards the earth. So maybe there's a force that's actually doing the pushing. But no. No, we can't do the simple answer. They have to do the complex, silly answer and then be so frickin' arrogant and saying we proved it when they have no evidence of it. Again, their kinetic energy theory can't survive the lever test. I wonder if he would take the lever test. Please, 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 Mr. Flat Earth Debunker, could you please explain, how levers work? Okay, explain here. I can do it in a minute or two. I mean, it's just worth reiterating and pointing out and saying, come on. In 3 years, I haven't gotten one rational explanation for this whole kinetic energy thing. It has a horrible history, just absolute nonsense, religious gibberish. And then a simple test of the lever just demonstrates how it's complete garbage. All right, 2 mass here. one mass out here. The lever says, the balance says, hey, they weigh the same. Okay, same amount of pressure is being applied, same amount of momentum is being collected. So if I wobble it, the lever, obviously it's going to wobble less here, okay, and it's going to wobble more distance here in the same amount of time, meaning this has 2x the velocity, clearly, and this has 1 velocity. All right, and so they have inverse mass to velocity ratios. They're an inverse distance, and everything balances. But what if I'm wobbling this and it's balancing perfectly? It's wobbling back and forth. I do it in a vacuum and it wobbles for quite a while. And then all of a sudden I just stop the lever. Well, if I stop it in this position where it's moving this object, it just moved this object up, right? Then this object's going to move up with twice the momentum, twice the mv. the mv squared. No, it's got the same amount of mv. Sorry, don't make any confusion. 1/2 mv squared. So the kinetic energy is twice on this side. And if I do the same thing on this, I stop it when it's right after it's moved up. Okay, what's going to happen to this object? Oh yeah, it's only going to be 1/2. Okay, the energy. So how do you explain how there's this diverse circumstance where I'll collect twice as much energy if I collect it from this side than if I collect it from this side, when it's obviously being created by the same force is maintaining it, the same spring of gravity is making it wobble? It makes no sense at all. This completely fails. 1/2 mv squared has no hope of being the truth, and this simple test proves it fails. Now you take drag seriously and say, well, that we can't mock gravity, particle gravity can't work because of drag, and yet you can't understand that kinetic energy can't be true if it can't even survive a lever test. I mean, that's a pretty big objection, that if you have more energy on one side than the other, then if I do it this way, I drop the heavy weight in, okay, I gain free energy. All right, I gain more energy than I put in. If I do it the opposite way, I lose 1/2 the energy. I mean, it's basically telling you how flawed it is, because it's wrong both ways. Because the balance is telling you it has to be balanced. It has to be the same thing. This has to be the same as this. It can't be. They can't be two different things. They can't have different energies. Come on. How can you fall for this crap? How can you defend this crap? It's not only falling for it. Okay, they told you so and you believe them. But I mean, how can you continue to assert with such confidence that this crap is the truth? Ugh.
But in reality, it's not actually a force. And because
so whatever. So again, it's not actually a force because you say so, because Einstein made up a silly explanation that, and Newton could have come up with some wacky notion like that. And everybody would have said, hey, but what about? Hey, Newton, what about? What are you talking about? Space? The nothing is something? What kind of something? I mean, how the hell does it bend? I mean, what are you talking about? And somehow by the 1900s, everybody just forgot about having anything called any kind of faculties, rational faculties, and just went along with a bunch of babble, mainly because Eddington did an experiment that was a complete pile of crap. In his own journal, he says, I wouldn't stake my life on these results. He got 1/10 of the quality of photographs, and yet everybody declared Einstein right based on that nonsense experiment. That's never been redone with comparable technology. This is your physics. It's garbage.
it's not actually a force and objects are just moving in a straight line through space-time.
Okay, says you. It's just silly. It's moving in a straight line on a crooked road. Oh, okay. Sure.
Then it's not actually pulling or pushing on anything.
Oh, so says you again, and you have what as evidence or proof or any of that? Oh, that's right. You don't have anything, okay? You can't, like I said, you haven't duplicated the Eddington experiment. There's lots of explanations why atomic clocks end up breaking, okay? That is losing time or creating more time, you know what I mean? Telling time badly. I can screw up a radioactive isotope just by putting more isotopes next to it. I can heat it and make it count faster. I can do lots of things to screw up a clock. I can't bend time. I can't break time. I can't make time. I can't lose time. Time is just like this energy crap. You can't screw with it. as Professor Lewin. You can't finagle it.
And this is usually where flat earthers will say something else.
Okay, so, they're all so obsessed with beating up on these stupid, marginal, retarded concepts, but they will not allow anybody to scrutinize them with the same kind of force and, authority and, evidence. They won't accept the scrutiny, okay? I mean, for years I have publicly attempted to solicit any brave little physicist to sit there and endure having to answer my fucking questions. And they all wimp out. Like sheep farmers. Bah, bah.
Along the lines of, well, if gravity is not a force, then it clearly doesn't exist.
Yeah, well, I'm just saying it's just understanding that the universe is realistically, in my opinion, very realistically understood as just being, okay, the small universe is the only universe. It's the one that everything happens in the small universe before it happens in the big universe. No big object moves unless its little objects are being moved. So you can just understand everything is pixels, okay? You can pixelate me into 1,000 pixels, and then you could take each one of those 1,000 pixels and pixelate it into 1,000 pixels. And there is a quantum, relevant to the word quantum mechanics, where, hey, it doesn't get any smaller than that. So the photon, for example, the elements that make up the photon would be the smallest little cherries in the universe, the smallest fruit you can throw. And the fact is the cherry verse is what's really moving everything, because it's the force, okay, that makes the apples move and then makes the apples bang into the watermelons. All right, so, but that's all the universe is. It starts with something elemental, cherries being thrown around, perpetual motion cherries, the little force bits. And the little force bits are gravity, same speed. They are magnetism, they are charge, and they are light. Just at a frequency. I mean, that's too hard to figure out just at this, okay? I move my hand in a sea of cherries that are already moving. And what happens when I move my hand in the sea of cherries? Well, a bunch of cherries get pushed this way when I move my hand this way. And there's a bunch of no cherries when I move my hand this way. There's a whole reduction in the number of cherries reflecting. Photon. There, I made a photon. I mean, it's that simple. Electrons move in a sea of cherries. They're making photons. They're making the phenomenon of a photon. A photon is not a cherry. It is not an apple. It's a pattern of cherries. Provable fact, but you won't listen to the proof.
Which is wrong, because things don't have to be a force to exist.
Whatever that means. So it's obviously everything that does something has to be a something, and it's all happening in a sea of nothing. Now, if you believe something different, say you believe in ether. Say you believe the universe is made out of whatever, jello or something. Account for your medium. See, they just cheat the argument so egregiously, because they subvert the whole point of doing physics by creating mechanisms which they don't have to account for. So they don't have to answer drag questions. They don't have to answer any problems, because they make a force that's so magical. It's like me saying the Invisible Man committed a crime. Well, how are you going to debunk my Invisible Man theory? Unless you prove there's no invisible men, right? Because the Invisible Man's a perfectly good explanation. Because I don't have to account for anything. He doesn't have any footprints. He doesn't have this. He doesn't have that.
Earth is not a force, so therefore flat Earth doesn't exist. Checkmate for...
Okay, whatever. Checkmate. That's what he said. Checkmate for flat Earth debunking. This is how they get their jollies, is picking on retards.
But that is an argument for another time. But
they call them flutes.
But it's not just in its conclusion that the argument completely fails. It actually fails before then in its premises.
Okay, in its premises. So this is where I quit, actually. So I must have heard the other part. So he has the big reveal of how he proves it's not a push universe.
Because in attempting to demonstrate that pulling forces don't actually exist, it does actually inadvertently demonstrate pulling forces.
No, it really doesn't. So you're not going to turn pushing on the back of the doorknob into, actually, it's a pull. No, it really isn't.
So let me pull my pop filter again. Even though there was some...
It's really, in my opinion, maybe it's just a part of your immaturity. It's not a great idea to make people even more aware of your crappy props. This whole microphone, radio, I'm a radio guy or something. Well, I don't even know why the hell you'd want it in the video in the first place, but to play with the props, it just, no. But look, he made a really crappy tinfoil hat. I don't know what the little Smurf animal does, what his job is. Oh, there's another one hiding behind the Area 51 sign. Whatever.
Pushing forces there. Pulling forces were still involved.
So, says you that there's any such thing as a pulling force. So, you don't have any physical evidence of any pull force that can't be explained as just an absence of a push force. So if there's two things pushing on something from both sides and it's equal, and then I do this, like the electron thing on one side, and I make it so there's no reflected light coming to the one side anymore, that's not a pulling force. That's an absence of push. So this side is still pushing the irregular amount because the electron is right here and it's reflecting a bunch of shit and the stuff is hitting this side right here. But it's as soon as I move this electron over here, well, now this side isn't getting hit anymore. I didn't pull anything to make this move. Now this push force is stronger than this push force. So that explains it quite adequately. This playing little word games and pretending you debunked push with this stupid argument. I'm sorry, it's a silly argument. It's like half boats and stuff. I don't know what do I compare it to in terms of flat earth philosophy. I personally don't watch flat earth videos, so I don't need to debunk them. Because they're stupid.
And the reason for this is because I am a human, not a blob of atom.
Alright, so here we go. I'm human. What does that have to do with anything? You shouldn't even use the word human in any physics conversation, because obviously we're not physically distinguishable, okay, in terms of our physics from any, pot of goo. Right? We're just a mixture of chemicals. And so you can't, playing this I'm human blob, and so I'm different than all the other blobs. Well, no, you're not really in any substantial way any different than the shit that comes out of the dog's butt. The dog isn't much different, okay? I mean, physically, as physics is concerned, okay? It's not that big a difference.
I exist with shape. The same goes for the...
Oh, who cares? I mean, this is so stupid. We know your shape is just a composite of a bunch of molecules connected to each other, okay, by this very push-pull, the concept of the push and the absence of the push, and that's what's holding everything together. And so it's in the form of magnetism, gravity, and charge, you could say. Charge and magnetism, obviously, in my opinion, same thing, same monopoles. Electrons and protons. They're just interpreting the force inversely, and through interpreting the force inversely, one gets pushed by a certain force, the other one gets pushed by the other force, blah, blah, blah. But it's still all push. Push, 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 push. Something has to bang into something else for something to happen. There's no magical, it just moves in the space. It has to be forced to move. That means a force. Cherries have to hit it.
This pop filter right here, it exists with shape, so therefore something is holding it together.
Yes, the external pressure in the universe, the little cherries buzzing around, zillions and gazillions of them. There's more cherries than apples and oranges and watermelons, okay, by like 1,000,000 to 1 ratio. Okay, and that's why the universe is what it is. It's all under pressure because every piece of matter is in a universe that starts with just the cherries. Okay, the cherries move in the speed of light. And then you start putting solid objects in there where cherries hit and they stick and push. And once you do that, okay, and then they reflect off when an opposite cherry hits, blah, 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 blah. Simple rules. But with those simple rules, you create the container, the pressure that everything is under. And now you can mitigate against the pressure by creating high pressure and low pressure zones. You can shield each other from pressure. And that's what your atomic bits are doing. The electrons and protons are engaged in a contest between each other. I have a positive nucleus inside the atom, and I have a negative electrons, and what's really happening is yes, the external pressure is pushing the electrons in, okay, because there's the positive is absorbing the energy, okay, it's causing that absence of pressure, so the electron is tending to be pushed in, but the electrons repel each other because the stuff bounces between them. Okay, because it bounces between them, electrons can't get any closer to each other. And that balance between two different pushes is what keeps the atoms together. Simple explanation, works really, really well, yet you'll never consider it because you have an ideology. You already have a Jesus theory, and you really just don't want to change gods.
So that means if something is holding it together, it's not being pushed together.
Says you. So again, just every bit of evidence says, of course it's being pushed together. I mean, right now I'm getting hit by cell phone. I'm getting hit by radio waves from space. I'm getting hit by all kinds of different radiations. I'm constantly being bombarded by pushing mechanisms. So yeah, just imagine that times 1,000,000 and you've got the idea.
There's some pulling force there that's holding this entire thing together, isn't there?
No, there isn't. Okay, there's lots of ways to explain it, and you've decided to choose one way and completely ignore all the other possible explanations that could be provided to you to explain phenomenon. And you've just closed your little brain, and there's no conversation because you decided 200 years ago what kind of wavy, woo-wee verse you were going to live in. And you're glued to it, and that's a problem. But I can dissect what you're saying and say, yes, I can explain to you how it could easily be a pushing force.
Yeah. There's also the fact that when I pull this, well, my hand isn't just simply ripped off because there's nothing holding my hand to the body. You know, there is a pulling force that keeps my whole body intact.
Right, so again, you say it's a pulling force, and I could just as easily point out to you, well, of course it isn't. You're in atmosphere, okay, which is helping holding your body together. And I can change the rules, okay, put you in space. I can do lots of things where it makes it more obvious that you don't really work that way, that you would fly apart if I could actually put you in a field, okay, that was a pure vacuum, less real cherries in it. And then all of a sudden everything does start to fall apart. All the atoms lose their adhesion.
That is one of the parts of the argument that just simply doesn't work. But
whatever that means. So there's you didn't even address the argument. You didn't even consider, well, what would be the implications of a pressure, and I put something in the pressure, and I create a mechanism where they shield each other from the pressure, creating a bond between them, and, you know, blah, 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 blah. So you didn't even try to make a push understandable.
What if I were to tell you that the whole idea of pushing forces and pulling forces is just preposterous to begin with?
No, it really isn't. It's the only mechanical way things could interact is traveling a distance and interacting with each other, actually hitting each other. And we have every indication that's what photons do. They travel a distance and they impact something. Okay, and the impact transfers their momentum. And it, you know, frankly, it doesn't transfer because you can't transfer its momentum. You have to absorb its momentum. You have to grab the photon and hold on to its energy for a period of time, and then you can release it again. But you have to actually use its momentum, okay, for there to be an exchange of momentum. So you take something going the speed of light, you interact with an electron, you move it much slower than the speed of light, and then you release the photon again. What have you accomplished? Well, you've taken the momentum, a piece of the momentum of the force out, because now the force has been delayed in its progress in the universe. It's not going where it would have been. It's going to show up everywhere late. Okay, so you've stolen some of its velocity, essentially, by forcing it to push an electron. That simple explanation does work. You take that idea and you just take it everywhere and it will fit. It's the skeleton key that opens all the physics doors. Take a short little break. Alright, should be back.
The reason is because magnet. And because I said that, that basically makes me become Nigel Cheesy Hands now, doesn't it?
So it's all these little jokes. Commercials. Ew.
At Aspen Dental, we're a different kind of dentistry, where new patients get a complete exam and x-rays free without insurance. Plus...
Oops.
So...
Okay, so that's the guy, right, who didn't even have his videos up anymore. So he's not publishing these videos. It's like these people have all found this guy when he was having his little episode, and they've decided to just play it over and over and over again. So it's like some famous person could get drunk, they got video of it, and they just harass him for the rest of his life with the drunk video. And they think, wow, aren't we great? We're so superior. We're such quality alien, beings. We're so frickin' enlightened and above it all, because we'll sit there and harass essentially a dead guy, or puke. And they all have done it, right? They've all made their Nigel video, beating up on a guy who's not even publishing the video anymore. Crap. Can you get we'll just take the cheapest shots we can? We'll make the cheapest, silliest argument. So a guy who's basically said, oh yeah, I was full of shit. I was taking the wrong medication. Whoops. And they're just beating up his ghost. It's pathetic. Ugh. These are enlightened people. Oh, God. What kind of pea brain do you need to know you don't kick people that are already down, for fuck's sake?
Magnetism. The force that means that if I've got two magnets, they will easily attract like that. So that's a pull.
So again, he's saying they're attracting, when I could give you lots of scenarios where if I create a pressure vessel, exactly the same thing will happen. If I inject something that can absorb the pressure, then the things will all stick to it. You can create other mechanical models to illustrate, to show magnetism. You can do it with, spinning propellers in water. You can create other kind of mechanisms that will create little bits of attraction, little bits of repulsion, to give you some idea that you can still do it with particles. You can do it with things banging into other things. So yeah, you haven't proven the existence of push. You've just proven that there's these two phenomenons, things moving closer to each other and things moving further apart from each other. That's the two phenomenon. And they both can be explained as just removing a push will create what looks like a pull.
Pull force, right? Well, if I turn one of the magnets around, all of a sudden they don't want to come together. They actually repel each other.
So this is, I don't even know for who this video is intended, right? It's intended for 7-year-olds? What grade do you learn what a magnet is? Yes, we all know how magnets work, so you don't have to say that. Look, they push, look, there's a force. I don't know what that is. Yeah, you don't know what it is. That's the truth, right? You have no clue what's actually taking place.
So, I've just turned a pulling force into a pushing force.
And again, all you've done is reverse the arrangement of the matter, and the matter's polarized. So one side is, again, the positive they're only repelling because you put the same face to the same face. And if I turn the negative to the negative, I get the same repulsion as when I have positive to positive. So that's a clue, okay, that this isn't about, that it has to have, that the explanation has to be somewhere deeper than it's just reversed, right? Because it's not just reversed. It's that it's positive to positive, negative to negative, and it's only when you have positive negative or negative positive that you create what looks like an attraction. But again, it's not really an attraction. It's an absence of push. The forces between the two objects are leaking out of the objects when they're inverted. Everything that reflects off the positive goes through the negative, and everything that reflects off the negative is going through the positive. Therefore, there's no trapped energy to repel. But when you have same face to same face, then they're just bouncing, a ping pong ball bouncing between them. And the closer you bring the ping pong, the paddles, the more the ball bounces. And the more the ball bounces, the more times it hits the surface and imposes momentum.
And just to iterate my point, this is a compass. Does it point north because the needle is being pulled to point north? Or does it point north because the needle is being pushed by the south to point north?
So it obviously, in my opinion, would be obviously both. Yeah, it's not one or the other.
My whole point here is that thinking
The South Pole is actually the North Magnetic Pole, you know, that kind of thing.
of forces in terms of does it push or does it pull is not a good way to think about forces.
Well, it's a good way to think about elemental function. So again, unless you want to go with the Wooey-verse, this is your only choice. Okay, it's this. Okay, that's it. Stuff bangs into stuff. Bumping particles are wooey gremlins, fairies, pixies, gremlins, leprechauns, smurfs, SpongeBob. It's the cartoon, fake, phony nonsense verse. So it's either banging particles or bullshit. Those are your two choices. Clearly you're a bullshitter. Okay, I'd like to debate your bullshit, because every bit of it is under evidence. Every bit of it can be picked to pieces and shown to be as illogical as your 1/2 mv squared that creates free energy with a lever.
Because forces are often more complicated than that.
Well, says you. So again, they're really pretty simple. The forces of the magnet are pretty simple rules. The Maxwell put them in all these little simple equations because it's so goddamn fucking simple. So what's complicated?
I'm also pretty sure that there's a Yo Mama joke there about being absolutely repulsive while at the same time being large enough to generate a gravitational field.
Larger level, blah, 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 blah. Whatever that. So the very idea that you kind of think that these are very different phenomena, that gravity is completely different than charge and completely different than magnetism and completely different than light. No, it's all made of the same stuff, and all you're doing when you have a photon is you're putting that stuff in frequency. That is, you have 50 of them in this space. You know, the space between my fingers has 50 now. Then there's only 10 here, and then there's 50, and then there's 10, and then there's 50. You're just changing the pattern at which the cherries move through the universe. And so when there's no pattern, it's gravity. When there is a pattern, okay, it's could be light, magnetism, or charge.
But maybe that's what we need to learn from forces. Maybe what we need to learn from forces is that the universe...
You just have to learn that evidence is important, and you should go where the evidence points, not where the woo takes you. So you should be resisting the dark force of woo and focusing on, well, can I make this really work? Or how many conflicting theories am I going to have? I mean, right now, quantum mechanics has absolutely no connection to relativity and space-time. You really can't combine the two things. So you have elemental functions that you can't even put in the same universe and make it coherent. That should tell you something like, well, maybe we're wrong tracking here a little.
Is just the setup for one big Yo Mama joke.
So again, joke. I like accidental jokes, you know, but you know, this deliberate stuff is irritating. I like physics, okay? I mean, I don't need a comedy routine, frankly. I just need the physics. Let's argue physics.
It would be funny if it were true, though. And just in case it is true, I'm not going to say the joke, because if I do, then because the universe is the setup to that joke, saying that joke may end the universe.
Ah, ha, ha, ha. I mean, I could do some, like, you know, sheep farmer jokes, you know. I guess I did do one. But it was really short, little. Little jokes are good. Long jokes, no good.
So I'm not taking that risk. And to think that I almost had a video that was completely serious. Not on this channel.
Nope. Alright, so what's the point then? Okay, sorry, I didn't know. Not on this channel. Okay, so it's all just goofy buffoonery nonsense. And surrounded with this kind of, I'll just take clips from TV shows and clips from people who didn't, you know, took their video down. I'll take the, you know, and I'll just do this raggy bullshit. Oh, fun. Why don't you just Photoshop? Come on, it's so much easier.
Not this time. Not this time. No, not this time. It never happened. It never happened. Not this time. It never happened. It's false. It never happened.
Now, getting back to the more serious part of the video, because despite all the joking that...
So, yeah, despite all, you know, whatever this is, whatever. God, it's such a goddamn physics boner killer. Jokers.
We do, there is a little bit of seriousness that we have. So the whole argument...
So there's a whole club of fun little, whatever, wine cooler drinking physics funners.
Around pushing forces or pulling forces, and all forces having to be one or the other. It just falls apart on every level.
No, it really doesn't, and the fact is you never really thought about it, and that's the truth. You have no elemental physics knowledge or model or anything. You have this complex standard model full of particles you have no evidence even exist, that play no part in an atom. You can't even tell me where they live. You can't tell me what street they're on. They can't tell me what they're... Do they have a... Is it a straw house, or is it a stick house, or is it a brick house that they live in? I mean, you can't even make up your fairy tale, okay, that has anything in it at all. You're not even, you know, it's the cat without the hat. I mean, there's nothing. It doesn't make any sense at all.
And that's not to mention that there are other aspects of the universe that we haven't even touched on. For example, you have the strong nuclear force, which is...
So again, the strong nuclear force is just absolute bullshit, because I can make it clearly understood that, well, if you throw electrons into the nucleus, that is, if you understand that a neutron is a proton and an electron, that's why it's neutral, is because it has one of each. You know, that 1 minus 1 equals 0, so it's neutral, but it has a negative 1 and it has a positive 1. When you put that little electron in between two protons, well, then the protons can get really close to each other because they're both attracted, because there's an absence of pressure where the electron is. So they get pushed into the electron, okay, and there's no strong force. It's really an incredibly weak force. It's the absence of force between the proton being caused by the electron. That's why the two are able to get so close together. So there's no strong force pushing them. There's a force leaking the force, and called the electron. There's an object mitigating how close the protons can get to each other.
Responsible for basically keeping the universe together. And on top of...
So again, says you know, you have no real evidence, and there's plenty of other modeling that can be done to explain the phenomenon much better than your explanation. And that's a fact. And none of you have the guts to put the two arguments next to each other and show your arguments for the weakness they have, like your mv squared, like your light is bent twice as much as gravity theory.
Of that, you have the weak nuclear force, which honestly confuses me a lot because it has to do with things like particle decay and stuff like that. And then there's the...
So it really doesn't. Okay, so says you again, where's your evidence of what causes particle decay? where do you have any actual evidence of process? Because if you had to admit there was a process, then you'd have to concede that, oh yes, well, atomic clocks could be telling the wrong time because velocity means they decay slower. That could be the explanation. Yeah, it could.
The whole idea of, are forces actually even forces? When you really get down to it, which forces are actually a force? And when you...
I mean, really, anything that causes momentum, okay, and is invisible, you might as well call it a force, right? I mean, come on. Now, obviously, you could have electrons hit you and they would be invisible to your eye and blah, blah, blah. But I'm just saying, as a general rule, if it's going the speed of light, all right, and it makes something move, time to call it a force.
Really get down to it like that, the whole idea of a push force and a pull force and all forces having to be in one of those boxes.
No, there's only one box. That's the whole point of making the distinction. So you just broke the whole idea of the video in terms of making the initial argument that all the pulls are inverted pushes. And you're just ignoring that because you think you somehow debunked it. And you never did. So there is no pull force. There's just an absence of a push. So if I have something in a push environment and I remove the push from one side, it's going to move into the absence of push.
Really just makes no sense.
Yes, well, that's my opinion of your physics. It doesn't make any sense. It can't pass lever tests. I mean, a 20,000-year-old stick test, and it fails, and you still believe in it.
Because the universe is really complicated.
No, it isn't. It's really simple, and we're really complicated. And our complication is that we have all these things going on. We have all kinds of things distracting us. And so we don't do logic very well because we're confused by, do I love her or don't I love her? Does she love me or doesn't she love me? All this crap that we're all distracted by, so we can't apply logic to anything just about because everybody's just too distracted by their little fairy stories about, do my audience love me? Are they Patreoning me enough? Or is this, all this bullshit. So you don't think very well. The universe is really simple, it's doing a really simple thing, and you are fucking up looking at it. That's the simple explanation, because your mind's eye is too cluttered with icons and, well, Einstein was really smart, so he must have been right. Einstein couldn't have been wrong, could he? I mean, Eddington said right in his journal, I wouldn't stake my life on this experiment. Oh, doesn't that mean that it's the greatest experiment ever and it must be the real? I mean, how much better proof can you have? He actually says in his journal, I wouldn't stake my life on these results. Isn't that fantastic proof that they're great results? I mean, what could you get better than that? Shit.
Can't always simplify things down to...
I mean, Leibniz, who invented mv squared, right? It was just mv squared for 100 years. Did it? Why did he do it? What was his brilliant insight? You're too atheist. God, you have to have God in the physics. You cannot make a physics theory that doesn't have God in it. God has to play a role. There has to be God particles. So there must be mv squared because that's more God-friendly. I mean, you can't get better science than that. I mean, that is science of the highest integrity. And these are people debunking flat earthers. I mean, come on. Come on. Too silly.
Push or pull. Unless it's a door.
USAA is made for the safe pilots.
So I don't know,
like Sergeant Hill.
is there more stuff here? Unless it's a door. So it's going back to the beginning
with
again.
USAA safe pilot.
Fuck. Yeah, that was the end of the video. Oh, okay, so a subtle joke. 616 likes. I mean, I'd hate to even go to the comments. Oh, God. For most forces, a force being pushing or a pulling force is only a question of point of view or reference frame. This is such horse shit. There's a three-dimensional universe. Things travel in the three dimensions of the universe. They absolutely move from one place to another. I mean, fuck. There's actual places in the universe. Alpha Centauri is in a place, okay, far, far away. It's way over there somewhere. And you have to go there by traveling the distance to get there. There's no frame of reference crap. Shit. So depressing. Well, anyway, enough. We'll just get the hell out of here. So I did send him an email, asking him how much I have to pay him, for an interaction. I mean, he should do it just to prove how great his physics is. But we'll see. It's just so depressing. God, I hate this planet. Anyway, yeah, so that's enough. All right, so this has been draftphysics.com, debatephysics.com also, but again, can't find any courageous debater, somebody who can talk on the internet. They can actually have a microphone and they can talk. That's all they have to do. They don't even have to do the video, and we can't even find one of those. All right, anyway, till the next time and such and so forth and whatnot. Blah. Shitiverse. Stupiverse. Fucktardiverse.